Oh my gosh, here it is. We are live with the Being Seen podcast launch party. Thank you so much. We're multicasting to two Facebook locations, LinkedIn Live, YouTube Live, and Twitter Live. And I couldn't be more excited to share this journey with you. I want to just pause before I bring on my first guest and thank you all so much for the overwhelming support. I am completely honored that you are joining me on this journey, and I feel so seen by you. I'm so grateful. And some of the messages that I've gotten since the podcast, the first episode, the first and second were released on Monday. The messages that I've gotten have literally stopped me in my tracks. I hoped that this would be impactful for one person. And the messages that I've gotten make me want to just do even more. So thank you for seeing me. Thank you for being here. Thank you for joining me on the journey. And let's get this party started. My first guest really is an integral part, and we're going to share this story with you of how this podcast even came to be. He is the proud father of Human to Human, H to H. He's a keynote speaker. He is a mentor of coaches and entrepreneurs and leaders in accelerating their business. Please join me in welcoming Brian Cramer. Hello, Brian. How are you?
Hello. How are you doing? I'm so excited for you.
Well, I'm so excited that you're here. And Brian, right off the bat, I mean, this has been a journey that you and I have been on for over a year. Because it happened in lockdown. And before we tell that story, I definitely want to circle back and tell that story. I want to let everybody know that Brian Cramer has been my business coach for over 2 years. I have tried hard, and life has tried hard to come up with a situation to stump you in this whole coaching process. And so far, we haven't gotten there. So fingers crossed, we can have some smooth sailing. But thank you so much for your support.
Oh, it was immensely I'm so honored to have been able to walk alongside you and help you, and also thank you for seeing me and and seeing how we could work together, and the magic that was created, and what you're doing now is so incredible. So congratulations.
Well, thank you so much. I want to hear your side of the story, because I've been telling my side of the story of what happened that day. It was just a regular old, well, it wasn't a regular old coaching day because we were in the middle of lockdown, in the middle of a global pandemic that none of us had ever experienced before. So with that setting, it was a regular old coaching session. And do you remember how that unfolded and what you remember from it?
Ooh, this is it's one of those, because remind me how. I do remember, but how long ago was it? That's the part I don't remember.
Yeah, sure. My memory says it was June or July of 2020.
Okay. Wow. Yeah.
2020. Yeah.
So this has been in the works, and it's been in the works. I was able to listen to your first episode, which was so heartwarming, so, but it's been in the works for a lifetime, right? And so
100%.
Yeah. And so but what I recall, and please jump in, there's different perspectives on what each person sees. And the one thing that I remember is that you were telling me about one of the times that you had a moment where you had a place in time where your therapist, I believe, was telling you that you had done, you were about to embark on and do this work, but she was really telling you that you had done an incredible amount of work and still hadn't ended up, as a prostitute, and as a on the streets, and she's like, I see you. I see you for what you're doing, and I see you for where you're at, and I see you for who you are. And I'm like,
I love so much your retelling of the story. Brilliant. That's so good. And you're right. There's so many different perspectives. But yeah, I'm sorry. Okay.
and part of it I may have picked up even because I listened to the podcast, so I'm not sure if it's all integrated.
That's fair.
And so, and then I was just like, oh my God, that's it. You were seen, and you're
Yeah.
like the way that you're telling that story and what you keep saying over and over again. Like
Yeah.
I felt seen. It
Yeah.
was the first time I felt seen.
Yeah.
When you and ironically, that's what you do for others. You see into others, which is what I always talk about, which is intimacy.
Yes, you do talk about that. Yeah.
Into me you see, and you do that so well when you interview others, and so we're talking about how that podcast could be shaped I think that day, and that just made total sense.
Well, I want to share my experience of how it happened, because for me, it was your style of coaching, and you probably have a name for it and everything. All I know is I'm on the other side of it, enjoying the heck out of it, and having huge breakthroughs. So, but what I remember is you said you were curious, right? You were curious. You said, Jennifer, what happened? Like, if in the past few years you've had these major transformations, you've lost half your body weight, you wrote a best-selling book, you became the CMO of a tech company, what happened for you? And I instantly knew. I said, oh, that's easy. It was years ago in 2009 when I tell the whole story in episode 1 because my counselor joined me on that episode, which was like, ah. So anyway, it was like, ah, in all the ways, in all the feels. It was so amazing and so scary and so all the things, right? But then, Brian, what you said, I told you about that moment in my therapist's office, where for the first time in my life, I felt seen. And just to give a little context, what she said after she heard my whole life story was, she said, I want you to know that I hear you. And we will get to all of that one by one. But what I want you to know is what you've just told me is that you are resilient and strong. And what I would have expected from somebody who had your life is that they would be an alcoholic, a drug addict, a prostitute, or dead. And I just remember going,
yeah.
Oh my, the feeling of that, it was just like, she sees me. And even now I'm emotional telling it. And I've told it so many times. And it's like, she believes me. She sees my experience. She believes me is really what it was. She validated me, right? And so when I shared that with you, I said, really, it was just all about being seen. And you stopped. And you just said, I just got chills. That's it. That's your podcast. And we hadn't even been talking about a podcast.
Oh, see, you have a way better recollection than I do. That is, and what I love about that is that that I think that everyone wants to feel seen, and so this is a flagpole. It's a guiding light. It's a way for everyone to be seen, and to listen, and to be a part of something, and to learn from it. Your first guest was phenomenal in that I learned from you, and for sharing. And by the way, good for you. I want to honor that for you to go do that. That was really hard. I would suspect to put yourself out there in that way, and also so educational. And I would imagine that a lot of people are going to get very educated on how they can use this information to also know how to create more intimacy in their lives. Because as you know, I'm a big fan of being human, and the more that we can all be more intimate and more cut to the deeper level, and understand each other more, the more that we're going to be connected. And that's what we all want more of. Every single human wants to be more connected with each other.
Absolutely.
That is our one thing that we all want more of. And so that's what I think I found special about not only that episode, but what I think this is going to be great for.
Well, thank you for that. And you're such a great example of seeing people yourself. Even through, I remember, I don't know the year, but I want to say it was 2013, 2014 when you first caught my attention on Twitter, and your energy just jumped out of your profile picture and off your tweets, and I was just like, this guy's the real deal. And then we slowly built a friendship and a business relationship through that. And so I'm so very grateful for you and for Courtney being in my life. I want to give a few shout outs, and then I'm gonna circle back and ask you some questions about your being seen stuff and what that means to you. But first, let me just say hello to Catherine. You guys, thank you so much. I can only see if you're watching based on comments. So I just want to give a quick shout out to those of you, Catherine and Chrissy. Chrissy, thank you. I have to just say, hey, Chrissy has helped me launch this from day one. She has been on this roller coaster ride with me for the past, I don't know how long. She has worked with me as the podcast launch producer. So thank you, Chrissy, for all your hard work. And then Doug, hello, Joey Dumont. Hello, Mitch Jackson, Liz Kelly, Susan Escalante, Lori Myers, Katie Jordan, Carol Williams, B. Smith. Thank you for being here. And Liz, beautiful comment. Thank you so much. I'm putting up on the screen for people to read. And Brian Cramer, also known as BK. When we first started talking about being seen, do you remember what your interpretation was when I asked you, what is your being seen moment?
Yeah, it made me think that that being seen is the gateway to more. It's the gateway to deeper relationships, and I hadn't truly thought about it for me when you asked me that. And I shared a story I'd never shared before.
Yeah.
I'd never shared it, and it just came up. So good for you. You asked. Nobody's just ever asked me that before. So you asked powerful questions, and I just was so like, I was proud of you in that moment, and I was like, oh God darn it.
That's a conflict of interest right there. When your client, you're like, it's like, I'm proud of you, but why did you ask me that? Darn you.
Yeah.
Good. Well, then my job here is done.
Yeah. It was a really nice moment, because it really did make me think, wow, if everybody can ask themselves that question about how do they like to be seen, and how does that create more deeper relationships, and then how does that allow them to see others, and how can we all see others a little more, and from different perspectives. And like just now, when you and I were going back and forth on how we saw that time when we were coming up with the podcast, and how we saw that moment and the perspectives that we all have, it's just fascinating. So yeah, it was a really neat question.
Well, you're the king of questions. Like, you ask questions all the time. Like, I'm surprised we even get any work done, because we're always both so curious. But I want to know what is going on in your life right now that you find the most fascinating.
Oh my God, everything. Well, the most fascinating right now is not what you would expect, because my parents just sold their house last night, and so I'm going through a little bit of a what would you call it? A
Transition?
a transition and a seasonal change.
Yeah.
And what I know now is that that I see my life differently than I did 5 years ago. As my parents sold the house that I've lived in since I was 5 years old, and they're moving to Arizona. I live here in San Jose. I was born and raised here, and so I'm going through a change in where I was born and raised, and it's fascinating, is what you asked, and that to me is my connection to my parents and my where I grew up, and now how I see my life as my parents and all of our family or all of our friends. As we get older, we start to see our lives differently, and I'm starting to see mine differently, and I find that now every day to be a little bit more. And I know this sounds so cliche. I know how I'm about to sound, but I find it more of a gift, and I find like each moment like now as just a true honor of like, wow, how much longer do I get to be with people and with my parents and with all kinds of friends and family, and so it's just really touched me, and that's where I'm at right now.
What a huge, huge transition. And I'm sure a lot of people can relate to a major change. And, it's just another example of we think we have time. And then a shift happens. And that's one of your specialties, is what's the shift, right? And so thank you for sharing that. And it's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out for you.
Well, and they're moving by you, so good.
I know.
Now they're going to become your parents. So have fun.
And I'm good with that because my parents have passed away. So
there you go.
Let's do that. Perfect. Okay. We both knew the moment Brian Fanzo hopped on, he was going to do I is greater than Y. We knew it.
Not today.
So predictable. Not today.
Not
okay.
today.
I'm putting that away.
Only on his birthday. Only on his birthday.
Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. So, but welcome, Brian. Thank you. Brian's also a guest on the podcast. He is in season 1. I want to give a shout out really quick to a few more comments before we let you go, Brian. But we have Cammie Gildner is here, and she said, got Brian to think. Way to go, Jenny Q. Boom. Okay, can I put that on my resume, I wonder?
Oh. Stumped Brian.
Stumped Brian Cramer. Okay, and Nancy, thank you so much for showing up. And you guys, thank you for being here. We have some more guests coming up, but before we move on, Brian Cramer, there are no words. Just huge gratitude for seeing me from the moment we met. And we met virtually. Thank you. That's all.
You're going to get me going.
Well, it's just how we do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, everybody connect with Brian everywhere he is. He's got big stuff coming because he is Brian Cramer. So
yeah.
Okay. Thank you for your time this morning, and thank you for everything.
I'm proud of you. Keep going. This is just the beginning.
Thank you.
Yeah. Honored and proud.
Thank you so much. All right. All right, Brian. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. If I can see what I'm doing now here through tears, I'm going to remove you from the screen.
Okay. You got it.
Thank you. Have a great rest of the day. Okay. Woo. All right. Woo, woo, woo. Here we go. So I want to just say, Brian mentioned this is just the beginning. And I feel like that in some ways, but I also know that every single thing I do, every single thing I accomplish, a lot of people say it takes a village. Not for me. For me, it takes a country. I have so many people who teach me, encourage me, support me, do so many things. And this next guest is one of those people. So let me give an introduction to him first, and then while he's on the screen, I'm gonna tell you what he's done. So he is the California Trial Lawyer of the Year and the Streaming Lawyer, sharing 35 plus, I'm adding the plus, years of experience of opinions and advice. Boy, does he have opinions. Anyway, welcome to the podcast launch party, Mitch Jackson. Thank you for being here.
I have opinions. Have you ever met a lawyer that doesn't listen? I was in tears, and I don't cry that often. But what Brian said about his family in Arizona, I'm born and raised in Tucson, and I had a similar, I guess he calls them Fokker moments, right? From the movie Everybody, where last night, Lisa and I drove up to LA to pick up our daughter's puppy to babysit for a week. She's a third-year lawyer up in LA, everybody. Yeah. And as I was driving up with Lisa, we were talking, and our anniversary is tomorrow on the 1st, 33 years. So we're talking about a lot of things and reminiscing. I thought to myself, my first year of law school, my parents driving from Tucson to Orange County to visit me were younger than I am today, driving up to LA to see my daughter. And I had the same moment Brian just talked about. It's a realization that every moment in life is precious, and the permission that we give ourselves, right, to do the things we want to do and be there for the people that we want to be there. It's so important. And when I listened to you and Brian chatting, my initial take on you, Jennifer, was completely different than how you saw yourself. I remember meeting you during one of our early live streaming events and thinking to myself, wow, here's someone that's got her act together. And you did, and you do. She's successful. She's articulate. She knows how to do a live video show. This is somebody I need in my life. This is somebody I need to tap out to for help, share with my friends. And that's the Jennifer Quinn that I knew, okay, from day one. We have since, full disclosure, everybody, Jennifer's been to the house. She's friends with Lisa. We've spoken on stage together. We've done a lot of fun things together. But that's how it started. When I listened to the first episode of your podcast, which I did, right, I had no idea of your journey, about your journey, okay? Little bits and pieces, but that wasn't the person who I know. That wasn't the person I saw. That wasn't the person that I was interacting with. And it kind of reminded me that that transition that you made, that story that you shared in your first episode, took years for you to go from, point A to wherever you are on the timeline. I don't think you're at Z yet. I'm certainly not at Z yet. I think I'm about halfway through.
The journey continues for all of us.
All right. And so what I'm getting at, though, and this is really important for everyone to hear, is however many years it's taken you to get to where you were to where you are right now. For me, I want people to know that it can take years to do this, depending on your situation, depending on your experiences, or if you look through a different lens, sometimes you can change it just like that.
Yep.
It's your mindset. It's giving yourself permission to take that next step, like you did and explained in that first episode, like you're doing with this podcast. And it's like what I try to get my clients to do each and every day. It's that mindset. So because of all the above, it's good to be here. It's good to support your new podcast. And I'm not going to let you put me on the spot today. I'm not going to let you get me to start crying. So I'm just telling you right now.
Okay, we've had this conversation. When it's my show, it's my courtroom, and I'm the judge.
Ooh,
so who calls the shots here?
Apparently you do.
Apparently I do. So I want to know, Mitch. I
am.
I invited you to be a guest on the show, on the podcast.
I know you did.
And you wanted some time to see the first episodes before we recorded.
I wanted to, and you're right. I know where you're going with this. So what was my get seen moment? I'm not going to share it with you right now. Okay,
no, you're not going to share it
I'm
with
not
me
on
right
the
now.
witness stand, and I'm not under oath. I will tell you that when our episode drops, like Brian, I'm going to share a story that I've never shared before with anybody on social
I can't
media.
Wait.
Okay, so I do want you to know it. And it does have to do with giving yourself permission. We're all so hard on ourselves about what other people think, about whether or not we're going to be successful, about whether or not we're smart enough to do what it is we want to do. And I think the successful people that I've represented, I've been around, some of the things that have worked for me throughout my life, I'm not a spring chicken anymore, so I've been there and done that. It all starts with giving yourself permission don't be so darn hard on yourself, and then taking daily action and improving on a consistent basis. And I think once you allow yourself to start doing those things, as you well know, Jenny Q, because that's your story, that's where the magic starts to happen. So hopefully through your podcast episodes, you'll be empowering people to give themselves a break, to give themselves permission, and to use the tools that you talk about to get there, right?
We all need tools. And Mitch, it's exactly what you said. This is why my hashtag, I have 2 hashtags for the podcast, hashtag being seen and hashtag join the journey, because you said we're not at Z yet. I'm not at Z yet. People watch. And one of the things that's so important to me, I have been very public with my transformations, and I did that intentionally. And it's very important to me for people to know behind the scenes. You can transform your trauma into your superpower. Absolutely.
You're there.
Oh, are we there?
You're back.
I totally froze. My screen went out and everything.
Just a little transition. Don't worry.
Okay. This is why you live stream with the streaming lawyer, because it's nothing throws him. It's all good. Anyway, my lighting on my display is off, but I'm just going to keep going because I don't know what just happened. So
you look fine.
I'm washed out. You look better when you're washed out. That's just kind of the more washed out you are, the better you look. So back to the journey. It's join the journey. Let's all do this together. We're all connected. Let's hold hands. Let's join the journey. Let's get tools. Let's be human and be okay with it. And Mitch, I really, really don't know if you realize the impact that you've had on me since we met 6 years ago. We did meet through live streaming. We've met in person. And one of the things that you've done, and I know I'm not the only one that you've done this for, but there were moments where it was such a lonely journey as an entrepreneur, such a scary experience to put myself out there to live stream and to try all the new things. And then out of the blue, I'd get a message from Mitch Jackson. Hey, you're doing good, kid. Keep it up. Or I'd get a here's an audiobook. Hope you like it. And I know that you do that for a lot of people. And so I just want to let you know that it is not being missed on me, and it has kept me going in the dark moments. So thank you for that.
You're welcome, Jennifer. It's my pleasure. I'm honored to call you a friend. And it's interesting when you talk about, I know you've got another guest coming up. When you talk about transitions, for me, your transition was going from live video to keynoting at a big event. That's the transition I know you from. Okay. And it's almost like when I listened to your first podcast episode, I'm like, wow. Okay. Let's just focus on the last 6 years, because that's what I remember. And your next guest Bob?
It is.
Okay. Well, I just want to say that incorporating Bob's go-giver approach and mindset into the practice of law has allowed me to transition from a ruthless, drop the gloves, take no prisoners trial lawyer to somebody that's more empathetic, to somebody that's allowing compassion to serve as his compass in the courtroom. And it's allowed me to get better results in this because of people like your next guest. So I'm honored to be a part of your community, and thanks for letting me be a very small part of today's live video, Jenny Q. Good luck with the podcast.
Thank you so much. Thank you for being here. And I cannot wait to record your episode. Boop, boop.
All right. It's good.
Thank you, Mitch. Great. Have a great rest of the day. Take care. Okay. Well, I can tell you a couple things I didn't expect. And this is why we do live video. I mean, this is why I love live video. Live video, it's not if something's going to go wrong, it's when, or not really wrong, but if something's going to go in a way that you don't expect it, it's just a matter of when. So if you've been watching, you saw the glitch. Now my lighting is way off, and you know what? That's life. It's okay. And I actually have to say, just because this is what I do live stream consulting. When I'm just going to coach you all right now, whether you want it or not. Here's the reason live video is so powerful. People want to know who you really are. They want to know who you are, and how else can you do it if you're not responding in real time? Nothing's edited. So you saw how I responded. You saw how Mitch responded. Even the viewers, the live viewers, you saw how they commented, what they said. And so that's why I love live video, and I always will. And I love live video almost as much as I love my next guest. He is amazing. He is a Hall of Fame keynote speaker and best-selling co-author of The Go-Giver, and he is the founder of the Go-Giver Success Alliance. I'm just bringing him on right now. Bob Burg, welcome to the show.
Jenny Q, I love you. You know it's true. What's up? Are we live?
So I just have to tell everybody when we logged on to record Bob's episode, he started singing, and then how long did we spend laughing?
Yeah, quite a while. I think longer than our interview.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, so that's good. Okay, so I just got a notification here that they're having trouble with LinkedIn. It might be on LinkedIn's end. I'm gonna just remove the destination so we don't have that glitch. Maybe that's what happened before. Okay, so pardon me. Okay, all right. So Bob, hi.
Hi, I saw you speaking with my great friend Mitch Jackson, one of my heroes. Great guy. I only
He's
caught
a
the
great
last
guy.
couple of minutes. I'm sorry, but I'm sure there were gems of wisdom throughout.
Well, let's talk about you. I mean, yeah, Mitch is great, but he's gone. So let's talk about you. So,
Mitch is yesterday's news, at least 3 minutes ago's news.
That's right. He's so 3 minutes ago.
So,
Bob Berg, you are, when I think of people seeing others, you come to the top of the list. And here's why. And we talk about this on the podcast episode, but you know what we're not gonna share right now. We're not gonna share your being seen moment, but I do want to talk about this. You make sure that when anybody on social media, and I mean, how many millions of copies of books have you sold?
a couple, I guess.
Yeah, a couple million. Like, you are like legit the real deal. You're out there changing lives. You're the top of all the business bestsellers, right? And yet you still take time to see every person who interacts with you on social media, on digital marketing, and it is phenomenal. And so I just want to thank you for that.
Thank you. That's very kind. Thank you, Jenny Q.
So now I want to know, because you're always doing new things. You've always got exciting things going on. What are you most fascinated with right now?
Well, I think I'm fascinated just by thinking about human nature, which is really something that I've studied probably for 35 years, I would guess. But I'm just always more and more fascinated by it, because the more I learn about humanity and human nature, how it works, what drives and motivates others to do things, the more I realize that there's little logic behind it in terms of how emotion driven people are. Yet, as Dan Ariely, the title of his book, Predictably Irrational, all of it is very predictably irrational. Okay, it's almost logically emotional, if you will. While those don't
wait, logically emotional?
Yeah. So, people are very emotion driven. I think we know that.
Yeah,
We'd like to think we're logical, but we're emotion driven. We make major decisions based on emotion. We back up those emotional decisions with logic, right? We back it up with logic. We rationalize, which I guess means we tell ourselves rational lies. And we do that to explain away those emotion-based decisions that we know we either shouldn't have made, or when we've kind of let ourselves go and do something that just kind of happened, and and we make excuses, we rationalize. Okay. And so we're very emotional creatures, but because of that, it's very logical when people do emotional things. It's almost very predictable. For example, the way the human ego controls many people. And if you're in a discussion with someone, let's say a debate of any type, whether it's political, whether it's business, whether it's philosophical, what have you, and you speak to this person in a way that really kind of insults them a little bit, okay, they're going to be less likely to look at your great actual point that you made logically. They're going to let their emotions and their ego close them off from being open. That's very predictable. You can see it in people if you watch two people have a discussion with one another, right? If someone is not treated, but however, if the one person, if the communicator is helping this be in a genuine and authentic way, helping this person also feel good about themselves, while at the same time making a point. In other words, they're using tact. They're using diplomacy, right?
Yeah.
It's a lot more likely that that person is going to be very receptive to their message. Now, is there anything really logical about that? No. It's all about emotion, because the idea that the person presented wasn't any different, and yet the results were totally different. It's predictable. It's logically emotional.
You know, what is that emoji where it's like a right? That's what my head's doing right now. What is that? It's got to be called something. I don't know what it's
I
called.
love when you do things like that. I still get a kick out of when you said Mitch Jackson 3 minutes ago. I thought that was great.
He's gone. Like he's gone. Like whatever. You know, you're here. Let's talk about you. Anyway, so you know what I was thinking about when you're talking about emotions, and this is probably not even in alignment with what you're saying at all, but this thought came to me last night. Emotional endurance. Have you ever thought about that phrase? Emotional endurance. What comes like, because here's mind blown. Look, Lynn shared it with us. She's like, mind blown. Yeah, that's it. It was just like we're in a sad state of affairs when I can't think of words and I can only act out an emoji.
Well, you know, a lot of that, what you're talking about with the emotional endurance is mental toughness. My friend Steve Siebold talks about that, has been talking about that for years, and others do as well, of course. So sure, that's a very big thing.
Yeah. And Cammie just put 2020, and that's exactly how I feel. It's like my emotional endurance has not matched. I'm not back to pre-2020 yet. Do you have so let's just turn this into a therapy session. Bob, do you have any tips for me?
No, not really. I'm afraid I'm not a very good therapist.
Okay, fair enough. So I love what you are. So is there another book coming out with what you're fascinated about?
No, not really. I mean, you know, I speak about it and talk about it a lot, but no, I don't have any other books coming out at the moment. I think I'm a little bit booked out for right now. So
fair enough.
I don't see another book coming out for a little bit.
Well, the thing that I love about your books, you know, they're categorized as business books, but they're life books.
Thank you.
Like they really are. It's like a manual to life. It's so good. It's so good. I cannot wait for your episode to be published, because I don't know. I think you share a part of yourself that we don't normally see in your work.
Yeah. Well, I hope that it. I do remember what you're talking about, and you know, I hope it's something that if someone does relate to that, and I kind of hope they don't, and we both know why. But if they do, I hope it's something they find helpful, and that it, you know, helps them to kind of take care of that situation.
Well,
again, we're being very mysterious, aren't we?
We are being mysterious. It's almost like we planned it, which we didn't. But we didn't. But what I do want to say, that what I've learned through this process is the details might be different, but the shape is the same. So even if specific details of someone's challenge or trauma or experience, even if the details are different, the journey to overcome and to actually transform that, you know, can be the same. So yeah. You have a lot of fans here. People are talking all about how amazing you are. Get adversaries into allies. I actually did get that based on Mitch's recommendation years ago.
Thank you.
And
Mitch.
it is gold. Yeah, it is gold.
Thank you.
Sure.
That's my, you know, that's kind of the book I feel I was put on earth to write. So thank you.
Okay.
Have I never said that to you before?
Everybody screenshot that. If that's the book that Bob was put on this earth to write, I mean, it is gold, and I did love it, and I did learn from it, and I do incorporate much of what I learned. Now I'm going to read it again.
Now I want to know how Mitch feels about being told he's so 3 minutes ago.
My hunch is he's okay with it. He's like, it's true. And especially since it's you, Bob. He's like, yeah, you know what? I don't blame her. It's Bob Berg. Why wouldn't she? So I'm putting words in his mouth, but I'm guessing. Anyway,
I got to say this, Jenny Q, that, and I got to hear Mitch's last couple minutes, and I'm just going to say ditto to what he said, because I've seen you grow over the years, and I saw you when you first began, and I've seen the transitions you've made, and again, the growth. And I am just, I'm so proud of you and so happy for you. And I just know you bring so much immense value to the lives of everyone you touch through any medium or media platform that you happen to work through. So thank you for all you do, and congratulations.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you. That means so much coming from you. Wow. Okay. I'm going to play that part of the recording over and over. Thank you, Bob. I look forward to collaborating with you more in the future.
Thank you, my dear friend.
Thank you. All right. Take good care. Thanks for joining me. Oh, goodness, you guys. Thank you so much for joining. We have some more great comments about Bob Berg's books. Say that 10 times real fast. Bob Berg's books are definitely about life. I read The Go-Giver a few times a year. Ooh, you read it a few times a year. Yeah, totally. Okay. Mitch is saying hi to Lynn. I love the community here. Mitch said, I'm okay with it, about saying, it's Bob's turn. Okay. And hey, cool. Okay. So those of you watching here on Facebook, Nancy did put the link to Adversaries into Allies. Okay. Very good. Okay. All right. Let's move on. I am so excited to bring on my next guest. He is new to my life and to my awareness. And I don't think that's the case for a lot of people, because his work has been shared many, many, many thousands of times. I don't even know the number. But he is a writer, a comedian, a mammal, a new poet, an old dancer. He makes terrible first and third impressions. So if this is your first time seeing him, give him some grace. Please welcome to the podcast launch party, John Rodell. Hi, John.
Well, hello, Jenny Q. How are you?
I'm doing well. It's so good to see you again.
I am honored to be here on this launch party. How exciting. Congratulations. This is amazing.
Thank you so much. So I want to just give viewers a bit of context as to how you came to my awareness. I want to say it was about a month ago. I read a poem on Facebook, and it just rocked my world. And I'm not a fan of poetry. I'm just going to tell you, right? It rocked my world. And then within days, several friends shared that same poem with me. And you do read it on the podcast episode, but could you just give us, like, I want people to have some context. If this is if it's the first time they're seeing you, they're not going to have a good impression based on you. If it's the second time they're seeing you,
right,
then they're going to love you, right? Next time.
This is perfect, right?
Yeah. So anyway, are you able, and I'm kind of putting you on the spot a little bit, but could you just kind of give us, because people are going to recognize it when they hear the first few lines. Are you able to share that with us?
The entire poem, or just do you want to
just the first few lines? Yeah, just the first few lines so people can recognize it. Yeah.
The first few lines are, my heart and my brain divorced over a decade ago, over who is to blame about how big of a mess I've become. ...
Just hearing that, I'm like, what? And so you do read it on your episode of the podcast, and it is available on your Facebook page. And it's, how many billions of times has it been shared? Billions might be a smidge of an exaggeration.
Well, I like hyperbole as much as anyone. I think trillions. So I wrote it on.
Minimize your impact. I'm sorry.
Oh, right. Come on. No, I wrote it on August 12th, and by August 19th, it had been shared about 250,000 times. Not straight from my Facebook share, about 120,000, but from there, it's kind of had its own life from there on. And I've been writing for about 4 or 5 years. I've had some pieces move around a little bit. Nothing like this. Nothing that quickly. And from people from all over the world, yogis in India, New Zealand. I had an event where I read it in a call from people in New Zealand. It's amazing how quickly it left Cheyenne, Wyoming, which for those of you who don't know much about Wyoming, we don't have a lot of people here. And
how many? Like 60,000, you said, right?
Yeah, I live in Cheyenne, which is the capital city of Wyoming, and there's 60,000 of us, which is like an apartment complex in New York City. So it's weird. It's definitely, but to have something I wrote leave my little Facebook cafe that I wrote in and it take off and go around the world so quickly is a testament to the power and the danger of social media.
Mic drop. The power and the danger. Absolutely. Well, obviously it has changed a lot of people's lives. And on the podcast episode, you share the story of how you became a poet. Like you this isn't something you've done your whole life. And so that was in 2015. And we don't have the time to get into all those details right now, but I'd love to know that since the shift happened in 2015 and now you're where you are, what are you finding the most fascinating about in life right now?
Oh my gosh. If I could think of anything, it's I always it's whenever I think about where my life has been over the last few years, I and I don't mean this as a comparison, but I look at Steve Martin, where for growing up my entire life, I looked at Steve Martin as just a comedian, a guy with the arrow through his head, wild and crazy guy, Saturday Night Live, did stand-up comedy. And then from there, he moved on and did movies later on in life. And then he became like romantic leading man. And then he was another, and then from there, he became an author. And then from there, he became a banjo player with Edie Brickell. And now he's back on TV and a hit show on Hulu called Only Murders in the Building.
Yeah.
And yeah, and it's brilliant. That's a great show. Him and Martin Short together, it is pure gold just watching that. But for me, it's the idea that our lives don't stay static, that things change regardless whether you're ready for them or not. And maybe our core principles and our light inside of us doesn't change, but we can adapt to what's happening in our life and become a different instrument. Like for the first part of my life, I might have been a trumpet, but now I find myself as more of like a piano, and I'm playing different kind of music through my life. And so 5 or 6 years ago, I wasn't a writer at all. When you say you weren't drawn to poetry, I wasn't drawn to poetry either. Any educator that ever taught me would be blown away that I wrote poetry, let alone could read it without falling asleep.
Let me ask you this. Is it fair to say that through poetry, you transformed your trauma into your superpower?
Yeah, I would say that I definitely I used my scars and I turned them into violin strings, is kind of how I explained to someone this morning.
Beautiful.
And like it's the idea of taking things that have hurt you, taking things that have wounded you, and taking those holes and then letting wind blow, letting the holy wind or sacred wind or whatever you want to look at it blow through it to make music. Because if I just got hurt for no reason, if I was just a wounded character for no reason, that would be really sad. But I can turn it around and show other people that if a kind of a schlub like me can survive these wounds, these injuries, then absolutely anybody else can, and find a way to turn it to help other people.
Beautiful. I love that so much. That is such a part. That is a really succinct way to say what I've been trying to say. This is a journey. # join the journey. We're all in this together, right? We can use our trauma from the past, and there's hope, and it will get better. And so, John, thank you for honoring me today with your time to hop on for the podcast launch party.
I am so thrilled. I am so excited for our episode when it comes out. I'm just proud to be part of this project and really honored, and getting to know you. I know there's going to be an ocean of people out there, a countless star field of people out there that are going to be touched by your wisdom and your perspective. And for me, just to have a small part in that, I'm absolutely honored.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much. And I kind of want to ask permission, but I'm not going to. I'm just going to say it. I'm going to make the announcement right here. I have commissioned John to write a being seen poem. And when that is complete, and I gave him as much time as he needs because I want it to be, from his heart. And so when that comes, we're going to hop back on a live stream and you're going to read it live. And then you will get a literally live reaction from me the first time you share it with me.
That is terrifying and exciting all in equal measure. So I can't wait.
That means it's perfect. Okay, awesome. Everybody go follow John, read his poetry. It will change your life. Thank you so much, John.
Thank you so much.
And next up, this is perfect timing that my next guest is here, because if you've been on this broadcast, you know that I had a technical glitch which completely changed the display lighting. So I'm completely washed out, which is perfect to be side by side with a national media expert, an NBC News, MSNBC, CNN headline news anchor alum. She is the master of media and TV. And here she is to see this. Welcome, Lynn Smith. Hello.
Oh, hi, Jenny. How many times have we talked about just roll with it? You just roll with it. You look gorgeous regardless.
Well, thank you so much. I want to give people some context on how we met and your true brilliance. Yes, we can go look CNN, anchor Lynn Smith and see your on-screen genius. That's easy peasy. But you and I were introduced by a mutual friend because I was struggling to merge my stories, to merge where I came from with where I'm going with this being seen journey. And I met you, fell in love with you, hired you immediately. And it's a large part of your genius that this story is making sense to people, because you helped me shift that. So thank you and welcome. And thank you for joining the launch party.
Party. And you're so kind, over generous, because it is all you. Sometimes it's just really hard for us to tell our own story because it's so difficult to weed out some of the things that we are so attached to. But you, throughout the process, had at your core this beautiful, important story to tell. So my work was just as easy as could be. And now everybody out there gets to see what an incredible person you are.
Oh, well, thank you for that. Thank you so much. And you have recently done a major transition in your life. I love how, this couldn't be a coincidence, could it? That many of the guests of my first season have just recently gone through or are going through a major transition. So tell us why you decided to, at the height of your career as a CNN news anchor, why you decided to be like, I'm out, peace out, I'm doing something different.
I think probably the answer would be very similar to everybody that you've spoken to, and probably a lot of you out there watching or listening, where COVID just made us all reassess so much in our lives. It made us realize what was truly important and that life really is short. And I was able to spend a tremendous amount of time, as we all were in COVID, with my young children, which I had a busy job. As a morning anchor, I would leave at 5 o'clock in the morning. I would often not be home until later on in the afternoon. And I loved it. It filled my cup for a lot of years, 15 years to be exact. I sacrificed holidays and going to weddings and working overnight shifts. And it always was worth it at the time. But I began, as I watched my boys grow before my eyes through that year and spending so much time, is it still worth it? And that's a question that I had never asked myself. Is it now? Doesn't mean that it wasn't before, and that was a valuable time in my life. And I realized it wasn't. And so I leaned into fear. And I think that that's a big part of making a transition, is that you have to be able to have the courage to lean into fear, because it does not come easy. I will tell you, transition is hard.
It is hard. It is so hard. And, as I was thinking about you this morning, as, preparing for this, and I was thinking, being seen as a news anchor is probably very different than being seen as a human. And I know that in a lot of your social media, even while you were a top CNN news anchor, you were sharing very raw and vulnerable things. What brought you to that? Like that, I feel like that might be scary when you're a public figure.
That was important to me, especially for working women. I had so many people reach out to me and be like, how are you doing this? You make everything look so easy and you're so put together. Even now, like I do client calls, and they're like, your set looks perfect. You have makeup on. How do you always look perfect? And it was important for me to differentiate my professionalism, which I'm going to show up every day and be professional, and then my personal life, which was real. I have struggles as a parent, as a working mom, as a professional. That's life. And I wanted that to be something that didn't get lost in what our natural job is, which is to show up and be our best. News anchors can't have a bad day. People that have their own business can't have a bad day. Your clients won't care for it, just like your viewers won't. And so social media was the place that I chose to really tell that story. And I think it's an important one for everyone. And it's what you're doing in your podcast. You know, you're allowing yourself to be vulnerable, but being really intentional in your vulnerability. It's not a matter of being out of control or a mess. It's a matter of being intentional in your vulnerability to show people how they can grow themselves when they do the same.
Absolutely. And I like to call that what you're talking about, strategic vulnerability. And I'm passionate about this because what happens, and we've talked about this, what happens is people see the big influencers, the big stars, the big celebrities be vulnerable in the middle of the trauma, and they're getting a ton of support.
That's right.
But if I go on and I'm crying because something just happened to my kid, people are like, what the heck?
Yeah. That's right. And
Yeah.
that's something that's this messed up about social media. It messes with our minds. It messes, and in some ways it's really great. So it's really important when people are listening to your podcast to find that strategic vulnerability, find places where it's healthy and where it's discussed in a thoughtful way and where it's really intentional and not something that someone's just throwing up there in kind of a self-promotional way. And some cases when it's so out of control.
And,
you know,
hoping they get seen.
Yeah, exactly. What I tried to do in social media was Instagram versus real life, where you saw me on set and I looked like I had it all together. I went home and my kids like climbing on my head so that you could know this isn't my life all the time. This is the pretty version of my life. And this other side is really beautiful as well, but it's chaotic, just like yours is.
Yeah, definitely. I'm